Marketing can be very expensive, and there are so many ways to market, and it is overwhelming, right? And most people don't know where to start. And so this is about where do you start? How do you really define where you should be spending your dollars in marketing or your time? Welcome to Profits and Pints, where strategy meets great conversation and real-world action. I'm Samantha Doyle. Grab a drink, settle in, and let's dive into this month's big idea. So today, we're going to talk about marketing starts here. Last month, for those of you that were not here, we talked about pricing and profitability. Is there anybody that was here from last time that it made a big change on their pricing after leaving last month? Anybody?
Actually kind of did.
There you go. I like it. Yes. Awesome. Cool. So the idea is that this workshop is short and just like actionable so that you can take it away and implement it immediately. So that's the idea behind it today. This month, we're talking about building the strategy to support that pricing. So you have a good pricing strategy, but how are you going to get people to it, okay? And this, I just like this quote. It's marketing isn't about just being seen. It's about being seen by the right people with the right message, right? And so don't just send everything out there, a random message to random people. Be really intentional about it. This is about how can you be intentional about your marketing strategy before you spend money on marketing. Because marketing can be very expensive, and there are so many ways to market, and it is overwhelming, right? And most people don't know where to start. And so this is about where do you start? How do you really define where you should be spending your dollars in marketing or your time? Because that's also worth something. Okay, so I've come up with this MAP framework, marketing action plan. The idea here is simple, okay? I like to keep things simple. What is a step-by-step thing that you can do in your business today that's going to outline your marketing strategy so then that you can therefore go to a marketing person who specializes in ads or websites or social media or whatever the thing is and have them implement it, or you can implement yourself, right? It doesn't really matter. But sometimes when you go to someone who does marketing, they don't know your strategy. They don't know your offering. They don't know your ideal client. They don't know any of that stuff. And so they may ask a lot of questions to try and get that out of you. But if you can be proactive in your approach and have it ready to go, when you go to a marketer, they're gonna love you, okay? Because, yeah, Kayla knows, okay? Kayla knows here. If someone comes to her and says, hey, this is my ideal client, this is my pricing, this is my model, this is my funnel, this is everything that I have to offer. Can you help me deliver this? That is much easier than going in blind and saying, I need to market. Okay, great, now what? So that's what we're gonna talk about today. So these are the 5 different steps that we've come up with. We have market, defining your ideal client. Who are you talking to? This is so incredibly important. If you're not sure who you're talking to, who your ideal client is, you're not going to capture them. When you try and throw something out to 1 million people, the chances of catching the right people is very unlikely. But if you can be really, really targeted on who that ideal client is, you are much more likely to capture the people's attention that you want. The next one is message and funnel. How to guide them to a purchase with intention. So instead of having a bunch of different offers available, having a step-by-step intentional funnel to get them into your system. Next is money, knowing your budget and your lifetime value. A lot of people say, okay, we're gonna do a marketing budget, it's gonna be 10%, okay? That's fine, but let's be a little more intentional with that. What is the budget that you should be spending in order to acquire a client? How much does it cost to acquire that client? And how much are you gonna get in return for acquiring that client, okay? We're gonna do it very simply, I promise. Next is methods, choosing the tactics. So once you have your ideal client, you know your funnel, and you know your budget, then select your tactics. This is where a lot of people make a mistake. They actually go and say, okay, I need to market. I'm gonna do social media, I'm gonna go to networking events, and I'm going to post on LinkedIn, okay? Great, but if you don't know the first 3, you have a really hard time figuring out what tactics you actually should be doing. Where are your ideal clients? Are they even on LinkedIn? Are they even on Facebook? Do they even want the thing you're offering, right? And so being really intentional in funneling them into your offering is really important. And then the last thing, and the most important thing, is metrics, okay? Most people, unfortunately, spend a lot of money on marketing. and they measure nothing. They spend a ton of money and time to market themselves, to go to these events, to post on social media, on ads, whatever it is, but they're not actually measuring if it's working, okay? And if you don't know if it's working, then how do you know if you're getting a return on that? And so it's really, really important to set up metrics. Okay, so first, we're gonna talk about market. Those of you in my BNI know Jeff, and I think I talked about him last time too. So Jeff is my ideal client, okay? And I talked about him in my BNI, that's why they know. So we're gonna use Jeff as an example here. As we are going through this, I want you to think about your company and your ideal client, and that's what the workshop is for. So you can kind of take notes to try and guide you through all of these steps. So Jeff is an HVAC contractor. Okay, and he has actually quite of an assortment of clients, but today we're gonna focus on property managers, okay? Because he does do residential work, but his property management clients are way more profitable. They give him multiple units all at once, and that is who he really wants to target. So when you're thinking of ideal client, it's not who is your client, it's who do you want your client to be. It doesn't necessarily always equal the same thing, okay? So for Jeff, we have property managers. We're thinking 20 to 100 units, okay, of HVAC units, which is pretty good, right? That's who we're wanting to target. The pain points of this person are emergencies, vendor reliability, and time. If they go down, and it's an apartment unit, and they go down, how many people are yelling at them? A lot. A lot of people are not happy. So this is really, really big pain point for them that you want to try and solve, or Jeff wants to try and solve. Next one is values. What do they value? Well, because of those pain points, they value speed, communication, and proactive service. They want Jeff to be proactive in his services, okay? So this is how you identify, who is your ideal client, and think about who is it as a person, okay? I didn't put this on here and I shouldn't have, but I named Jeff. Jeff has a name, okay? Who is your client? What is their name? Is it male or female? Doesn't mean you're only going to take male or female. It doesn't mean you're only going to take contractors, but having an ideal client helps you capture more of those types of people. Okay, any questions so far? Cool. Next, message and funnel. There are a million different types of funnels out there, okay? This is one example, but I tried to keep or get a really simple one that can be applied very easily. When Jeff has his core offer, I'm just gonna go to the next one actually. So we have a lead magnet, entry offer, and core offer, and I'm just gonna use Jeff as an example. So Jeff has an annual maintenance contract. That's his big ticket thing that he wants to sell to the property managers, right? That's what he wants to do. Now he could go and do social media posts about the contract, trying to get people signed up for the contract. He could go to events and talk about the contract, and he could do all of those things, but the conversion rate is going to be fairly low because it's a big ticket item. There's not trust built yet, right? How do people trust him? They don't know. They have never met him before, right? So you need to be able to build that trust, and you need to be able to funnel them into this offer, because it's not as easy as just buying the big offer. So what we've created is this 3-step process where you have the main service, you have a low barrier intro that costs money, and then you have a free offering, or a lead magnet, as a lot of people call it. So what we've developed for Jeff is we say, okay, we want these property management people to have an annual maintenance contract, right? So what is something that we can offer them for a lower price that gets them in the door? It gets them to have a taste of the offerings that we have, but it's kind of a no-brainer. Oh, right? No problem. So this one we came up with is $249 multi-unit HVAC audit, okay? So he's offering an audit to audit, their whole unit or whatever it is for $249. That gets him in the door. He gets a little bit of money for his time, right? But it's kind of a no-brainer because it's low cost, right? And so people are starting to trust him at that point. Once they've experienced the audit, it's going to be a lot easier for them to sign up for the annual maintenance contract, right? Because they've had an experience with it. So then we go up to the free and helpful. So what he's doing is trying to get people from the free to the low hanging offer, basically, or the low barrier offer. So we did a HVAC seasonal checklist. So So this is for property managers. He's sending a checklist to them and he's saying, hey, here's a checklist of all the things that you should be checking, right before summer or right before winter or whatever. Honestly, I'm not an HVAC specialist, so I'm not really sure what's on that list, but that's okay. It's not the point. I don't have to know that. So the point is that you can offer this for free. They download it. Now you're starting to build the trust. Then you offer the audit for like a low cost, okay? And you build even more trust. And then you get to the maintenance contract. This is it's a more intentional way of selling people your services. So I want you to just take a minute and think about what could that be for you. Again, this is not the only funnel style here. This is just one. But I think that, thinking about what is that entry-level offer and what's the free things that you could provide for your ideal client. Okay? Any questions? Yeah?
Is it bad if you have 3 of those free and helpful offers?
No, not at all. And that's the other thing too. I think the key here is that you can have multiple. I would probably only have one of the low barrier per main service. That's a really good question though, because some people have more than one main service, right? And so what I would do is, depending on what the services are, right? If they're service adjacent, sometimes you can kind of mold them into one funnel, but a lot of times you actually want a separate funnel. And so depending on what the other, like for example, residential clients, if he wants to design a funnel for residential clients, that is going to look totally different, right? They're not going to want the same things. They're not going to need the same things. It may look similar, but it's going to look different.
Probably an annual checklist.
Yes, something like that. But I think having multiple free and helpful tips is really good, because that one checklist is probably not going to last you forever, right? You need more than one lead magnet, as long as every single lead magnet is now leading to your low barrier entry. The idea here is to keep it easy. You go from free to low barrier to the main service. Don't try and skip straight to the main service. This is the money budget. There are lots of different ways to do a budget. I like this way because it gives you a really good insight into where your dollars are going. And so when you're doing the KPIs on the back end, you can really tell whether you got a return on investment for that, okay? So the way that I've done this is, first you want to know your client lifetime value, okay? And the way you calculate a client lifetime value is you can use monthly or annual, it doesn't matter as long as you're consistent, okay? So for here I used monthly. So for Jeff, his monthly revenue that he gets for his client, typically for his property managers, is $90 a month, okay, for example. So that's where the 90 is. And then the average amount of time that he retains a client, okay? So average amount of time that you retain a client is 24 months. So his average retention is 24 months. His property management clients are staying with him for 2 years before they leave for whatever reason. That's his average retention at $90 a month. Following so far? Okay, then you're gonna subtract the cost. Now here's the key thing. The cost is for the entire lifetime, okay? So for that 24-month period, how much does it cost him to service the client? So in his case, it's labor and probably a little bit, I don't even think that they would have a lot of materials. It's probably mostly labor, honestly, right? So how much does it cost him for the labor of that one client? You can do this on a bigger scale if you want, but it's nice to be able to do it with one client, okay? So if you multiply the monthly times how many months and then subtract the overall cost, that gives you your lifetime value. This is how much you're going to get from them in profit over the period of time that they work with you. Make sense? Everybody following? It wasn't too much math? Okay, good, I'm just making sure. So then what we're gonna do is we're gonna say, okay, well, what do we want to pay to obtain that client? Do you want to pay $1,185? No, you don't. You don't have any profitability left. So we want to pay less than that. So some standard ratios are 5-to-1 or 3-to-1. So I put them both up here just for some examples. So in this case, a 5-to-1 ratio, meaning he got a 5-to-1 return on his investment in marketing, is $237. And a 3-to-1 ratio is $395. Okay, so that is the budget of how much you want to spend to acquire the one client over the lifetime, right? Now again, we're talking averages here, but that's about what it is. So then you say, okay, I got that. So now what's my budget? And now this is where it comes into play on what your goals are. Are your goals to to acquire 20 new clients, is it 2 new clients? How much do you want to put into marketing?
Per year. Right?
Per year. Yeah. Well, yeah, you can do it per month, but I did per year for this one. How many clients do you want? If you want to do it by month, that's fine, as long as you understand that your budget's going to be in monthly. But for this, I did annually. So Jeff wants 20 new clients this year, okay? That's what he's wanting to grow his business by this year. So we took 20 new clients, and I just used the 395 for this. I used a 3-to-1 ratio. Multiply it by the 395, and that gives him $7,900 budget. Does this make sense? Do you see how this could be really, really helpful to know? How many people just spend money on marketing, don't track where they got their clients, and just hope it worked? Most people. Most people. No judgment. It's most people. It's because they don't understand this, and they're not applying it. And that's okay, that's why I'm here, to try and help with that. Okay? Okay, next. Methods. As I mentioned before, there are 1,000 methods out there to do marketing, okay? This is just some of the examples that we've talked about, and there are thousands more on top of this. I'm doing an event, guys. Here's one right here. Here's a method of marketing. I'm marketing, okay? Social media, organic social media or ads, okay? Having your website, doing direct outreach, sales calls, so many different things, okay? So how do you decide what is right for you? So Jeff, now, we know who the ideal client is. We know what the measurables are for budget. We know what the funnel is, right? And so now we're like, okay, well, what are the tactics? So based on his audience, which are busy property managers who value speed, clarity, and professionalism, based on the budget that we've determined, and based on the funnel that we've created, this is what we've decided. Do you see how deciding this before you know those 3 things can be dangerous? You're not picking the right thing. So we said, okay, Jeff's gonna do Google Ads. Google Ads makes sense for him because he's targeting property managements that are actively searching for the vendors, and it puts them at the top of the list when it's like an urgent situation, right? If they're urgently needing someone to fix their HVAC system and he's on a Google ad, that could be very beneficial from him because it gets him a foot in the door. Okay, very intentional. Next one, email outreach. So if these property managers are in their email all the time. That's what they do, their office jobs, okay? And so having an email outreach is really, really important and can be really helpful if you do it right? And I'm not the expert on that. Talk to a marketing person who is really good at email outreach. But I know that reaching out to those decision makers directly, if he can get the list of the decision makers, would be very profitable for him if he can hit their pain points. And then last but not least is LinkedIn videos. So he wants to show a presence. He wants to be online. He wants to be seen as someone that can be trusted. And so all those property managers are likely on LinkedIn, right? Because this is a professional group of people. And so LinkedIn and then videos, because it shows him his personality, it shows the types of things he can do. And so if he does LinkedIn videos, this will help bring people into his funnel. So those are just 3 things that I chose out of that huge list of things that is very targeted. Now these 3 are probably or may not be the things that you should do. You have to decide for yourself what makes the most sense for your ideal client and for your funnel and for your budget. And then next, metrics. The most important thing, right? So we have the Google Ads, email outreach, and the LinkedIn videos. And so when I look at metrics, I'm looking at it from 2 different points of view, And they overlap a little bit, but I always want to make sure to cover both. One are for each of the tactics. What are the metrics that you're measuring for each of the tactics? So for Google Ads, we're looking at impressions, click-through rate, cost per click, landing page conversions, cost per lead, all the really fun stuff that has to do with Google Ads for those of you who know how to do them. For email outreach, we're looking at open rate, click rate, how many people replied, how many people booked a meeting, and then maybe any unsubscribers, right? How many people are not wanting to hear from you? It's probably good to know. And then for LinkedIn videos, we're looking at views, engagement, likes and comments, profile, website clicks, new connections, or direct messages. So you want to be able to track this stuff so that you can then figure out where is it working, where is it not working. Because the reality is that marketing, Everyone's guessing, okay? No one actually is like, I can write a marketing funnel and a marketing copy and it will blow up immediately. No one knows that. Marketing is just taking the information that you have. You can write good copy if you're good at it, but there's still not a guarantee that it's going to work. You have to adjust. You have to see what's working, what's not working, what are people reacting to, doing some A/B testing. You have to be able to do that. The only way to know if it's working is by measuring it. If you're not measuring it, you have no idea if it's working. And the key here too is that you want to have an easy way to measure this stuff also. Don't go like bending over backwards to try and get data that is maybe not that helpful, right? And so there's a balance between how many metrics you are measuring and how much work it takes to get the metrics, okay? Because your time is also important. And then I also look at it from the different funnel sections, right? So some of this is the same, but I want to make sure that I'm capturing metrics throughout the entire funnel. So for Jeff, we have the HVAC checklist, which is going to be really similar to a lot of the ones we just looked at, which is like impressions, click-through rates, email signups, or downloads of the PDF. How many downloads did we get? For the 249 audit, we have like landing page views, form submissions, audit bookings, cost per lead, conversion rate to sales. Really, you're trying to get people to come to the next one and then to come to the third one, right? And then last but not least, conversion rate to the contract, right? How many people are you actually converting? Are you getting that 3-to-1 ratio return that you budgeted for? Average contract value, retention and renewal date, lifetime value like we talked about, and then referrals. You don't have to measure all of them. These are just ideas on how to do it, but you want to make sure you understand where things are working, where they're not, where you need to adjust. So, we talked a lot today, sorry guys. But I think it's just, I want this to be simple for people, and I know that it can be really overwhelming doing marketing when you're like, I don't even know where to start, I don't know how to do this. The key here is to try and keep it as simple as possible. Pick something that you can do easily, right? And you don't have to pick 3, pick 1. Pick one that you want to do. So you have your market, your message and funnel, the money, the methods, and the metrics. Those are the 5 areas, and it's in your workbook. So hopefully you can work through that a little bit and try and figure out a way to make it as easy as possible to implement this. Thanks for joining us at Profits and Pints. If you enjoyed this session, we'd love your feedback. Just click the link to fill out the quick survey. Your input helps shape future topics and makes this experience even better. Until next time, cheers to smart moves and great conversation.